Norma Bean, we the jury find the defendant, Bobby J. Fisk, guilty of murder first degree premeditated.
After a 6-day trial and 8 hours of deliberation, Bobby Fisk is headed to prison for the murders of Robert and Norma Bean.
24-hour News 8's Joe LaFurgey has been covering this trial since day one. He's live tonight outside the courthouse. Joe?
It was about midday, jurors reaching a decision that'll send Bobby Fisk to prison for the rest of his life.
We the jury find the defendant, Bobby J. Fisk, guilty.
The jury foreman would say it 8 more times. Bobby Fisk found guilty in all 9 counts, including murder, kidnapping, and home invasion brought against him.
That's exactly what we saw was evil in there.
Prosecutors say robbery was the motive behind the brutal killings. Fisk and another man, Tim Steffen, invaded the home of Steffen's neighbors, Robert and Norma Bean, on the night of October 5th, 2008. They kidnapped the Howard City couple. Attempts to use the Beans' ATM card failed. Eventually, the couple were driven to this northern Kent County gravel pit where they were shot. On the day of the killing, Fisk admitted to investigators he killed Norma Bean. But in a surprise move during his trial, Fisk took the stand in his own defense.
Will you make a difference in the case? The jury's decision.
I don't know. Fisk testified it was Steffen, now serving a life sentence after pleading guilty to his part of the case, who killed both of the Beans. Why change his story? Well, Fisk's attorney says his client was intimidated, first by Steffen into going along with the robberies, then by Kent County Sheriff's detectives into admitting he killed Norma Bean.
He told the jury what he witnessed, what he saw, and he told them that was the truth. But was that a mistake?
He wanted to do it. He wanted to do it.
We feel that justice has been served.
For the Beans children, that justice also brought some closure.
As a Christian family, we know that my parents are in heaven right now, and we got that feeling that they're kind of looking down on us in heaven, maybe rejoicing with us right now to know that this has been finally taken care of.
This attorney tells me his client will appeal today's verdict. Back to you.
Hello everybody, this is Papa John. You're on The Hunt with Papa John. Today I'm doing a double homicide case that I know the victims. I worked for them. I mean, they were lovely, great people. But it's a little close to the heart. Bear with me, this is my first one. I'm going to be trying to do this all. I'm learning. We're going to get through this and we're going to nail it. Alright, here, this is a case of Robert Bean and Norma Bean. Robert Bean was born January 12, 1942, and Norma, his wife, was born in October 3rd of 1942. They had owned and operated R. Bean and Son Trucking Company since 1977. Man, them two, they'd give you the shirt off their back. I mean, they were just amazing people. Don't see hearts like that very often anymore. The elderly couple had attended Luther Bible Church in Morley for nearly a decade and were members of the Michigan Farmer Hall of Fame and the Michigan Trucking Association. Their friends and family recounted how the Beans enjoyed bowling, golfing, traveling to Prairieville, Canada, and spending time with their 3 children and grandchildren. The couple had lived in Howard City, Michigan area and were valued community members, known for their devotion as church leaders and as business people. Neighbors and accomplices recounted their kindness and how they looked over others. They were living angels. No doubt in my mind. I mean, them two were they were amazing. Especially on how they had offered their company's resources and truck supplies to rescue workers after 9/11 and the floods in the South. One court testimony stated the Beans were wonderful people. They did wonderful things for everybody. They watched over us like guardian angels. Hence, it was shocking when the elderly couple's bodies were retrieved on October 6th, 2008 from an Oakfield Township gravel pit near Dick Street Northeast and Johnson Avenue, about 30 miles from their home on 600 block of White Street in Howard City, Michigan. Both were shot in the face with a Browning 7mm rifle, and the blast carried tissue and blood yards away from the bodies. According to court documents, Norma was shot first as she fell backward and died instantly. The officers found an unopened umbrella near her body. Robert's body and bullets entry point suggested he was on his hands and knees near his wife's body when he was shot in the face. Sorry. One of the experts testified he was probably looking directly at the weapon. It was later discovered during the trial that the perpetrators had shot Robert as he crawled towards his wife. State police firearms expert stated the spent cartridges found at the scene matched the Browning 7mm rifle, which was a gift from Norma to Robert, while Robert's body was found face down. His wife's corpse was positioned with her lying on her back. Luckily, the authorities didn't have to look very far for the killers. According to reports, witnesses living near the gravel pit saw Timothy Stephan Jr. and Robert Fisk at the gravel pit on the day of the murder. This is tough, everybody. One witness testified seeing the latter running to his car, pulling the door handle. Joe Soffer further said, Bobby said, I just witnessed a murder. I witnessed a double homicide. Bobby allegedly provided the detectives with a changing account of what happened that day. According to the police reports, Bobby and his accomplice Timothy had broken into the Beans residence in the early morning hours of October 6th and stole Norma's purse and the Browning 7mm rifle. Timothy lived across from the victim's home, and both were personally known by the elderly couple. News reports claim they had given him a truck and helped him fix it, and given a young Bobby rides to church, youth meetings. When the duo went through the contents of the purse, they decided to rob the Beans again for more money. The perpetrators re-entered the residence and used the stolen gun to threaten the couple. Still dressed in night clothes, out of bed, Timothy and Bobby made them board the latter's Chevrolet van and forced them to use their credit cards so often that the banks froze them. According to fraud investigator, the Independent Bank, Norma's card was used for multiple unsuccessful withdrawals between $50 and $500 at 3:30 a.m. in the Howard City Robert's ATM card was also used at the Sand Lake branch, but the account was frozen. Unfortunately, the video cameras of both ATMs failed to provide any clear images of the perpetrators. The investigators stated Timothy and Bobby also stole 34 generic Vicodin tablets and split them. After unsuccessful pit stops at the ATM, They drove the elderly couple to the gravel pit. They shot Norma first, after which a scuffle ensued between them and Robert. According to Bobby, he was forced to shoot the elderly lady, and Timothy killed her husband. However, the van got stuck in the pit and the two parted ways. The police found the blood-spattered van, the couple's cell phones, and crumpled credit cards at the scene. While Bobby was arrested at the station, the officers had to issue a lookout for Timothy. According to reports, he had asked the mother of one of his buddies, John Christensen, to lend them their vehicle after claiming his car had allegedly broke down. Timothy was arrested when he stopped at a Lincoln Avenue Northeast M57 gas station. Timothy's stepmother stated Bobby had come over to their house at around 10:30 p.m. on October 5th and had gone to meet him. He lived in a trailer on his stepmother's property. Tim had seen his son and Bobby frequently depart and arrive back home. Besides, he mentioned a notebook the prosecutor alleged that was used to chalk the murders. The theory was further strengthened that Timothy's stepmother coming across an incriminating note in her stepson's clothes. Moreover, the police found DNA that linked Timothy and Bobby to the murders. Bobby and Timmy were arrested and charged with multiple counts of premeditated first-degree murders, felony murders, armed robbery, kidnapping, home invasion, and firearm possessions. Timothy pleaded guilty to 2 counts of felony murder in April of 2009 and was sentenced to 2 life sentences in prison without chance of parole. On the other hand, Bobby opted to go to trial and was convicted of all charges January 2010. Bobby Fisk was sentenced to concurrent terms of life in prison on each of the murder, armed robbery, and kidnapping convictions. 30 to 45 years imprisonment on each of the home invasions and conspiracy to commit home invasion. 6 to 10 year imprisonment on felon in possession and conviction, and a consecutive 2-year term of imprisonment for felony firearm conviction. He appealed against his sentence, but the Michigan Supreme Court turned down his appeal. According to court record, the 42-year-old Timothy is incarcerated at St. Louis Correctional Facility, while Bobby is serving his sentence at Chippewa Correction Facility. Oh, man. Timothy Stephan pleaded guilty to the October 6th murders. During the hearing, a prosecutor asked Stephan to state for the record which of the 2 victims he had shot. This is tough. And Timothy's response was, both of them. He told the prosecutor after letting out a chuckle. The judge ordered Stephan to 2 life sentences and to repay $23,000 to the Bean estate. With one of the 2 men accused, of murdering Norma and Robert Bean, sentenced to 2 life terms in prison without parole. Timothy's stepmom told the family, "I'm sorry, he was not raised like that." This is a challenging one, you guys. I'm learning, and I had to hit one that was close to home, but I love Robert and Norma. They're still in my heart today. Their son and daughters are doing really well. I tried to reach out to them to get more information they could share with their dad and mom, just to give an insight on what their life was like. But thank you for listening. Please give a like, comment, share, and we'll move on to the next one.
Underway in the double murder trial in Kent County today. Bobby Fisk is accused of kidnapping a Howard City couple in their 60s, Robert and Norma Bean, and then robbing them, shooting them, and dumping them in a gravel pit in the fall of 2008. It's the third day of testimony in the case, and today, questions about what evidence was tested and which evidence was not tested, and why. All those questions being answered today. 24-Hour News 8's Joe LaFergie just stepped out of the courthouse in downtown Grand Rapids. Joe, what's the latest?
Well, Emily, we're hearing a lot of the more technical aspects of this case during testimony today. Of course, Bobby Fisk charged with the October 6, 2008 killing of Robert and Norma Bean. Several evidence scene technicians, CSI guys, if you will, took the stand today. Now, they testified to how the crime scene at the northern Kent County gravel pit, where prosecutors say the Beans were murdered, was processed. They also talked about DNA evidence. It was found on clothing belonging to Bobby Fisk and the man who's already pled guilty in this case, Tim Steffen. Now, investigators found shotgun residue, or gunshot residue, I should say, on Fisk's hands. But that residue was never tested because prosecutors contend it would not have helped their case. Fisk's attorney wanted to know, why take it in the first place?
If you don't collect it, there's no question later on. But if there was opportunity, potentially based on the details, it doesn't exist anymore. So we collect a lot of things on cases that we may never use. They might just not be probative on the case.
In other words, they collect everything and then decide whether it is important to their case. And this time the prosecutor didn't see that residue as a major piece of evidence. Now, we were expecting to hear from Kent County Medical Examiner Stephen Cole this afternoon. We'll bring you the latest on air and online throughout the day. Back to you.
This man, Bobby Fisk, accused of kidnapping and killing Bob and Norma Bean from their Howard City home. And prosecutors say that he took them to a gravel pit where they executed them. And 24-Hour News 8's Joe LaFergie just stepped out of the courtroom. He joins us now live this noon. Joe?
Yeah, Brett, the prosecutor says Robert Fisk helped another man plan the robbery and eventual murder of Robert and Norma Bean. And when they didn't get what they wanted the first time they went to rob the couple, they went back this time with tragic results. On the stand today, one of the people to take the stand was co-defendant Tim Steffen's father. The judge ruled we cannot show you his face because he doesn't want to be recognized in the community. His son has confessed to the killings. Fisk is charged with 8 counts, including the life offense of felony murder. Now, it's believed from the prosecution that the two went to the Beans' home on October 5th of 2008 and stole a couple of items, including the couple's ATM cards. But without a PIN number, they couldn't get any money by that card, so they went back to the Beans' home, allegedly kidnapping the couple at gunpoint. But when they still couldn't get the money, they drove the couple around, eventually ending up at a Kent County gravel pit. That's where Robert and Norma Bean were shot at point-blank range. Steffen's father talked of finding Fisk on his front porch that night. He was wearing camouflage and told the older Steffen that he had planned to go hunting with Steffen's son. But the younger Steffen later on kept going from a trailer on the property where he lived to his father's home.
About, I guess, 1 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, he took a notebook for some stupid reason. I didn't even question him, he's just my son, he does stupid things. I didn't think he'd be this stupid, but...
That notebook may be one piece of evidence used by the prosecutor in this case. It's believed that the two wrote down a sort of wish list of what they plan to take from the Beans' home on that notebook later that night, and of course into the early morning hours of October 6th. We'll be standing by throughout the trial and let you know the latest both online and on air throughout the day. Back to you.
In a Grand Rapids courtroom today, more details on how a couple from northern Kent County was murdered. One man already pleading guilty in the October 2008 deaths of Robert and Norma Bean. Today, the trial started for the second suspect in the crimes. 24 Over News 8's Joe LaFurgey's at the live desk with the story. Joe?
Yeah, Brian, prosecutors say after the killing, suspect Tim Steffen went one way. His co-defendant, Robert Fisk, now on trial, went another way. But instead of lying low, Fisk started flagging people down.
What happened, sir?
The 911 call came from an unlikely source. Using the cell phone of a motorist he flagged down, the caller claimed to have witnessed a double murder.
I heard a gunshot go off, and I seen the lady drop to the ground, but then I heard the other guy say, "Why did you shoot my wife?"
But the caller was actually the man now on trial in connection with the murder of Robert and Norma Bean, Robert Fisk.
Had nothing to do with it.
Prosecutors say the evidence will show otherwise. Fisk facing life in prison. Co-defendant Tim Steffens has already pled guilty for his part of the crime. Prosecutors say the two men plan to rob the Howard City couple, breaking into their home not once, but twice. The second time, taking the couple at gunpoint to a northern Kent County gravel pit and murdering them. Prosecutors say the two men then split.
There's a gentleman waving his arms like this, trying to stop me.
Tammy Sauer was one of several motorists on a nearby road who saw Steffen walking, but were flagged down by Fisk.
So I just witnessed two people get murdered, and I need a ride to Howard City.
The story just didn't make sense.
So what about the defense's case? Fisk attorney Damian Nunzio isn't showing his cards, but he tells me he's put both Fisk and Steffen on his witness list, but he hasn't decided whether or not he will call them to the stand. We'll, of course, be following the trial, and we'll let you know what happens.